Thank you so much, Osmond. Let's head on over to Andy. Andy's on the hold from Live Oak. Go ahead, Andy.
Hey, how you doing, Larry?
I'm doing great, Andy.
First-time caller and listener today.
All right.
I love what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
Got a, and we appreciate you. I've got an '04 Impreza, the TS wagon with a 2.5 in it. And when I bought the thing, it had the check engine light on, and I replaced the First Bank O2 sensor, just a simple thing, common, and it ran fine for a long time. But after a while, I started to have intermittent, real rough starts, and it wasn't throwing a code. Now, I suspect the camshaft sensor or the crankshaft sensor, but I'm not sure. Do you have any ideas what it could be? I mean, it does start after a couple of times of attempting it, but before that, it's a nightmare.
Okay.
When it does start back up, it runs fine. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to try a magic mechanic test. And, well, you're going to have to help me diagnose the problem, Andy.
All righty.
All right. This is the situation. When that car sets overnight, I want you to do something a little different when you go to start it up. When you go to start this thing, I want you to turn the key to the on position. Don't crank it. Turn it off.
Right.
Turn it back to the on position. Turn it off. Then go ahead and turn it to the on position, and then I want you to do that 3 times. I want you to cycle the key off to on 3 times, and then I want you to crank it. And if it fires right up without any hesitation, no excessive cranking, you need to put a fuel pump in it.
Okay.
All right, let me tell you why.
Do you think cycling? Go ahead.
See, there is a one-way check valve in the fuel pump itself. And what that does is it keeps the fuel system pressurized when the engine is not running. If that one-way check valve, for some reason or other, leaks fuel back into the tank, you're actually having to reprime the fuel system, chase air out of it before it's repressurized and ready to start and run the engine again. You see what I'm saying?
That's the rough start then.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. So if you cycle that key 3 times, what happens is you activate the fuel pump 3 different times. See, when you first turn the key on, the fuel pump comes on and runs for 3 seconds. That's a prime circuit. It does that on every car. 3-second prime.
Okay.
Well, in your case, 3 seconds isn't enough to prime the system because you've had fuel drain back into the gas tank. So by doing it 3 times and cycling the fuel pump 3 times, just by turning the key on and off, on and off, on and off, you got it pressurized. You hit the key, it fires right up. Well, there's 100%. We know exactly what's wrong with it. Now, you could take it to a shop, or including Magic Mechanic, and have what is called a residual fuel pressure test done. And you're probably going to pay $150, $160 for this elaborate test. But what that shows us is if we put the fuel pressure gauge on there, we start it up, we note how much fuel pressure you got. And then let's say it's 40 pounds. Well, the fuel pump's doing its job. It's working great. Car's running fine. You got the correct fuel pressure. But it's a residual test. You shut the car off and let it set overnight, and when we see how much pressure it is retained overnight, you see what I'm saying? If it's reading 0, we know we got bleed back into the tank. But you could either pay to have that.
Let me interject here just a second.
All right.
I do know that since I have had the car for over a year now, it's cranked every morning just fine. This is usually after a few miles or maybe a long trip, and it doesn't. It's hard to tell. I really haven't kept up with it, but you're telling me if I cycle the key 3 times in the morning, and it starts right up, then it's the fuel pump.
You've got a drain back. You've got fuel returning to the tank. But we need to do that.
8 times out of 10, it's going to start no matter what you're doing. But it's got that hard start every now and then, and it's not throwing codes or anything. So I didn't know anything about the residual.
But like I said, instead of having a big elaborate test done, you can check that for yourself just by cycling the key on and off 3 times. Now, if you do that and it never gives you another problem, we know what's going on with it. Now, Andy, have you had this cranking problem when it's been cold? When it's hot too?
Usually it happens when the car is hot. It's never happened when it's cold.
All right. Let me tell you like this. If you don't have a code, chasing cam and crank sensors is probably going to be a waste of time. If there's a problem with those, you will usually set a code. But there is one thing there is one thing that is common, and it's very common, and it will not set a code. And that is when there is a problem with the injector driver circuit in the powertrain control module. Let me tell you how this works. See, the injector driver circuit is what cycles those injectors on and off. So they're busy, and they get hot as a firecracker. And then what winds up happening is that you drive the car, you park it, you pull into 7-Eleven, you shut it off, you go inside, you get a cup of coffee, and you come back out, and the darn car don't want to start. And you let it sit there a little bit, and then it fires back off again. What happens is you've got a hot heat soak issue going on. And because what happens is when you shut the vehicle off, electrical components actually increase in temperature before they start cooling back down. And that increase in temperature of that injector driver circuit, it'll just cause it to go completely haywire with a high resistance. And then once it cools back down, everything goes back. It's fine again. So let's try the 3-key cycle situation. The other scenario with this is that if you have the problem when it's hot, and it's hard to diagnose, is the reason I'm telling you this. You really got to discuss this with the tech, and hopefully he understands what you're saying. But the thing is, it's very, very common. A hot heat soak with the PCM, the computer itself, the injectors when it's hot, it will not operate them until they cool off just a little bit. So let's try the 3-key, the key cycle thing. If that takes care of it, fuel pump. If not, where I'm leaning. Maybe have to hunt down a computer for the car.
Understand? Okay, but back. Just one more thing. When you do the cycle on the key, if it starts right up with no issues, then we know we have a residual valve problem.
Well, we're going to have to try it. We're going to have to try. We're going to have to try this cold, and we're going to have to try it when it's hot. We're going to have to try it both. And see if the problem goes away. Usually if it's a residual fuel pressure issue where you got fuel returning to the tank, you usually always notice it when it's cold in the morning after it's set overnight. But if you've got the issue when it's hot too, that could be a injector driver circuit, because it usually takes a little time, Andy. It usually takes a few hours for the fuel to drain back into the tank out of the lines. So, check it both. Cycle the key both, hot and cold. Try to get some rhyme or reason with it, and we'll pin this thing down. Thanks for the call, buddy.
Hi, folks. Larry Perry here. For automotive information, maybe you got automotive questions on cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Maybe you're thinking about purchasing a used vehicle, and maybe you just want my opinion. Tune in to the Magic Mechanic radio show every Saturday, 3 to 5 p.m. on WDBO.com. Also tune in to our Magic Mechanic YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe. And we'll all get together, maybe fix a few cars while we're at it.